So if you remember last video, it was all about fretting and finishing the neck. That's all complete now, so it's all oiled, waxed, polished. The discolouring that I had on the neck there, I've just stuck a pick on there. I'll probably replace that for one that matches the body of the guitar, a blue. This one's a bit too purple. But it's just so I can get an idea of what I could do to try and hide that discoloration, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm really pleased with how the neck's turned out. I've put the nut in as well, so that's all nice. Obviously you've seen the body. So the body's looking lovely, it's nice and dry now, it's got quite a few coats of nitro on there, so I'm really pleased with this. So this video is going to be all about constructing the guitar. So to start with, let's start with the easy job first. Let's put the tuners into the head. So we'll start with the tuners and then we'll start loading up the body with the bridge and the pickups, etc. So let's take a closer look while I do that. So as you can see, the first mistake, I didn't bother checking the holes for the tuners. It's ridiculous because now I look at them, they're really small and they're obvious, but hey, that's what happens. You always come across issues like this. So what I'm doing is I'm actually drilling out the holes. Because I'm using metric, it's actually 10mm, but I think the standard US ones probably are a tiny fraction smaller in Imperial, but I'm not entirely sure of the measurements. But 10mm it is. What I need to do is I need to drill all the way through the hole. I'm using my pillar drill. But what I'm doing is I'm only going halfway down on either side, or at least on one side I'm just taking the edge off. Because what happens is if you pull the drill all the way through, it'll crack the wood on the other side, and obviously I don't want that to happen. So if I just go down, I'm going to go both sides, go along, and somewhere in the middle they'll meet, and I'll just tidy up the inside, but at least the wood on the outside won't be cracked or damaged. I've clamped this down with a piece of cloth. Obviously now I've done this, I'm going to need to re-polish it anyway, but it's pretty good. As you can see, I've already done 3 and they're looking really good. So I'll just carry on with this and we'll get this done. So the next job I'm doing, now I've drilled the holes out, is I don't know if you can see, but obviously on these tuners there are little guide pins, so I need to measure up and get those pins in. Now the easiest way that I found to do that, again without damaging anything, is what I've done is I'm putting them in and just screwing them in slightly, so it actually pulls those pins and makes little dents in the wood, and that's my markers then. This piece of wood underneath is just a flat edge to make sure they're all straight along, perfectly straight in a row. So I don't know if you probably can't see, but where I've screwed them in slightly, it's left an imprint of the 2 guide pins, and that means when I take these out I'll be able to drill really easily to make the holes for those guide pins, and then that should be it. We'll just give it a quick sand down, another quick polish up, and then I'll put the tuners in there. Right, so after that little drilling interlude, I now have the bigger holes drilled out as required. I've already put 2 in, they fit perfectly. I've put everything in the back. So I'm just going to carry on and put the rest of these in. It shouldn't take too long, and that's the neck pretty much done then. The reason I'm wearing gloves is I'm just going to give each one a rub with the cloth as I put it in, just to try and keep all my sort of smudgy finger marks off it, because I want it nice and shiny when I complete it. So let's just get the rest of these in and then we'll move on to the body. Looks really good. I'm pleased with that. That is the neck complete. So let's get the body over here and we'll start loading that up with all the components. I've got my bridge pieces here, so here's the bridge. From the factory it looks like they've already got close to the correct intonation, which is nice for the scale length. So that's pretty good. And of course I've got the spring retainer for the back and some screws and the springs for the back. So first of all, I figured I will put this spring retainer into the back. There's no holes drilled out for this, so I'm going to have to mark up and then drill the holes out myself. But that'll be the first job. I'll put this in to start with, and then we'll see where we go from there. I've put a load of rags on top of the guitar to try and protect the body. I don't want to slip and accidentally scratch something since I put all that work into it. So all I need to do is I just need to line up the holes in the centre for this piece and then drill some suitable holes. But for the guidelines, I'm just going to line this up by eye, and then I'm just going to push this screwdriver, old screwdriver, the point in, just so I can see where to drill. So that's my guidelines in. Now I just need to drill some small pilot holes into there. I won't be using a very thick drill bit, quite thin. This is the screw's long, but it's not too thick. So I'll just drill a pilot hole in there, and then these screws should go in easily enough. I did a test hole in a scrap piece of wood, and the best drill bit for this is 3mm. So I'm just going to drill a 3mm hole into here now. And hopefully not scrape. So that's fine. They're in. Let's just put the screws in and the little spring retainer clip there. So they've gone in nicely and nice and straight. Obviously they're below the surface of the plate that goes on the back, so I'm pretty happy with that. That's in. I will unscrew or screw those to adjust as necessary, but I'll just leave that just like that for now. So we're going to flip it over now and we'll start working on the front. We'll fit the bridge and then the pickup plate. So the bridge should just drop straight in. There shouldn't be any problems with this. I've already drilled the holes for it. So it came with holes that were started, but they weren't very deep. They were just sort of CNC router marks. So I've actually drilled those out already to make it easier. So that just slots in there like that. And then you just need to put the screws in. So I'm going to use my electric, my drill for the screwdriver. I've got a low range setting on the gearbox, like a screwdriver, but I'm going to put the torque right down. So it doesn't keep screwing or strips the thread or anything like that. So let's give that a go and make sure it's nice and covered. Let's just line one of these up and go in. That's the first one. The edge of the bridge is actually slightly lipped, so you can use the bar and bend the bridge forward properly. So you don't actually clamp the screws all the way down into this. There is supposed to be a little tiny piece of movement, just very slightly. Otherwise, if you clamp it in too hard, then the bridge will start to tilt very slightly from the edge of the screw pressing against the lip. But that's a bit too loose, but that's good enough to start with. Let's get the others in. I might actually put my gloves on for this because I don't want to leave finger marks already. So that's in. It looks really good. very slightly raised. The lip, there's still some movement in there. This is now solid, so I'm really happy with that. That's good. Let's see if I can get rid of some of these fingerprint marks. But I'll give it a little tiny polish up just before I put the strings on, because obviously once the strings on it's much harder to clean all the chrome parts. But that looks good and I'm really pleased with that. So it's actually a Wilkinson bridge I found online. They're really quite cheap, so I'll see how it goes, but so far it looks good. I'm pleased with that. So the next job now, let's think, what do I need to do next? I think it's just to put all of the loaded scratch plate I've purchased. So if you remember, I actually bought a loaded scratch plate from Bare Knuckle Pickups, and including a set of their pickups, and they built everything for me. So what I'll do now is I think I will put that in and start to feed the wires through, and then we'll go about soldering the earths and putting the jack plug in. So let's get the Bare Knuckle Pickups and get those mounted. So here's the loaded scratch plate. All I need to do is line up the earth cables through the holes, and then I'll make some marks for the screws, so I can actually screw this down. Now I've bought some screws, they didn't come with it, so I've just bought some chrome screws to go in here, but obviously I need to do the alignment first before I make the marks and drill the holes. So let's just try and mount this and then we'll make some marks. Obviously these two are for the jack plug and one of them is the earth on the back. So let's try and feed this through. Excellent, so I was just checking the screws I bought were correct, and they are. They look really good, nice and shiny. So I just need to line this up now. I'll give it a wiggle, make sure it's all nice and straight, and then I'm just going to push some marks into each of these holes. And then what I'll do, I don't know if I should remove the scratch plate or just drill through the hole. I think I might just drill through the hole and leave the scratch plate on. Yeah, let's do that. But I'm going to do a test hole in a scrap piece of wood just to make sure I get the right width. But I'm guessing, looking at that, it might be a 2mm drill bit I need for that to go in. But I'll just go and check and then we'll start drilling. So I double checked, it's actually a 2.4mm drill bit that I want to use. I've just got these little Dremel drill bits for the little Dremel machine I've got, but they work perfectly. So I drilled a test hole, 2.4mm. I don't want the hole too small because these screws, you really don't want to force them in. They should go in quite easily, and there's so many of them that you only need a little thread on there, so there's plenty of thread to hold this scratch plate in. I've already drilled one in just to test, and that went in perfectly. So I'm just going to do another one here, just line it up and do another one, and then I'll put these two screws in to hold it in place. So let's do the second one now. I haven't screwed them in tight because obviously I still need to wiggle the plate a bit just to make sure it's in place, but these two are in a really good position. And there's still a little bit of wiggle room I've got in there, so that's perfect. I'm going to move on to a back one now, just to try and keep it all square and straight. So that looks really good. These will now hold it in place while I do the other work, and I'll finish putting those in a bit later. But I'm really pleased with that, so the next step is to start soldering in the components. So I need to solder in the jack and put the screw holes for the jack plate, and also solder the earth onto the back. as well. So this is coming along nicely. I'm pleased with this so far. I love this colour, it's the parchment colour. So I'm pleased I went for that. It's sort of off-white, but it's not cream. It's called parchment, and I think it's a really good colour for this dark blue. So let's carry on and we'll start getting the soldering iron out next. The next job is just to dab a bit of solder onto that earth wire there. So I've already pulled the earth round and just hooked it on. So I'm just heating up the soldering iron, and hopefully this should be pretty quick to get a dab of solder on there. And then we'll move on to putting the jack in. So that seems to be in okay. Now to put the jack in. So just before I solder this jack in, I just wanted to double check exactly which pins I solder. So the black, the earth, should go on the inner sleeve, and the white should go on the tip. So that looks to be the inner sleeve and that looks like the tip, so I'll just prep these wires, put them on, and then I'll solder them on. So they're on nice and tight now. That looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to put it in, make some marks for the screws, and drill the pilot holes again. So one of the last things I need to do now is put the neck in. Everything else is in. I've tested it on the amp and everything works. The pickup selector all works, so this should all be working fine. So let's get this neck in and then we can put some strings on and start to tune it up. So that looks pretty good. I've not done these tight at all. I've got that clutch again on the screwdriver really low, because I might need to shim the neck slightly. I'll see how straight this is, but if necessary I might just have to loosen the screws a bit and I'll just slide a shim inside if I need to bring the neck forwards or backwards slightly, but I won't know that until I get a string or two on there just to double check, see what it's like for setup. So let's have a look at this and get some strings on it in a second. So there we are. It is looking amazing. I love it. It's yeah, it's looking really good. I'm so pleased with this. So what I'll do next is I'll get some strings on it. I'll probably end the video here now, and next video I'll do put the strings on, the final setup, the final sort of polish and clean, and then we'll see how it sounds. So I'll see you next video.